Hi, geography students. Today, we're going to start working on our map assignment. So you're all familiar with the fact that at the end of the month will be our final map test. So each week throughout the month, we're going to have a different quiz. The quiz for this week is going to be for Central America and South America. And we'll start with a memorization strategy called chunking. So chunking is basically us dissecting the larger piece of data, which is the map of Latin America, into smaller categories that have associated meanings so that we can memorize them. So I've gone ahead and chunked the map of South America, and today you're going to go ahead and complete the same with the map of Central America. So I'm going to show you my rationale for why and how I did it with South America and how I'm going to label it. So as you can see, there's a blank map of South America. On the assignment, there will be a blank map of Central America that you will use and you can label. So when you complete this assignment for Central America, you can use your own criteria for why you chose to highlight certain places the way you did. For mine, I'll explain to you why I chose the criteria I did. So I have chunked South America into, let's count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. Sorry, I didn't show you. 5 sections. Each of these sections will have its own color, so I'll show you now. We can start with the very north of the continent. So these countries right here are on the very north. I apologize. And for me, the reason I chose to chunk those together is simply because of where they're located and because they're of relatively similar size. So these two fit together like a puzzle piece. So I'm gonna chunk these countries together and then we'll go through what countries they are and we will label them. So the first country on the left, when I memorize, I like to go from left to right. If your brain works better right to left, that's totally fine too. So from left to right in this section, we have Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela on the very north end. Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela. I've gone ahead and highlighted them in blue. Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela. So the characteristic between this chunk is that it's in the very north of the continent. So the 3 countries at the very top are Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela. Then our next chunk is also on the top. That's how I'm going to help us remember this one. So it's right over from Venezuela. We have 3 small countries here. Again, if I'm going from left to right, we have Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. Guyana. So Guyana is our leftmost country here. Guyana. Suriname in the middle. And French Guiana. Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana from left to right. So now we have 2 chunks. Those are the 6 northernmost countries in South America. So let's go through it together. We have Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. Our next chunk is going to be the side. So if we're going from left to right, which is kind of how we're framing this, we're going to start on the left side. And we're going to highlight 3 countries here. So on the very left, we have Peru, Chile, and Argentina. These countries are on the lefternmost side of South America. They're not at the top. They go from the middle to bottom, left side of South America. We're going to highlight Peru. I'm going to go top to bottom here because they're all on the left. Peru. That's our next chunk of 3. Peru. This long country right here is Chile. The other thing that helps me remember Chile is that it kind of looks like a chili pepper because it's super long and thin. It's like a Chile pepper. And then next to Chile is Argentina. It's important to remember that this one is not necessarily on the left side touching the ocean. But if we look at the map of South America, it's on the left side. So our next chunk of 3 is Peru, Chile, and Argentina. That is our next chunk of 3. So right now we have 3 chunks of 3. Should we go through all of them? We have Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana, Peru, Chile, Argentina. Now we have, as you can see, 1 chunk of 3 left, and then we have kind of an outlier here in the middle. So it'll be different based on the numbers of countries. So we have, in this example, we have 4 chunks of 3 and then 1 outlying country. So we can go in and do the next 3. These countries are rounder and they're in the center of the continent. They're also kind of medium sized. That's how we're going to remember them. We'll go top to bottom, which also happens to be left to right here. Our biggest country is Bolivia in this chunk. Bolivia. It can also help to remember that B is early on in the alphabet, and so Bolivia might be a little bigger than the ones to come and follow it. Bolivia, Paraguay, and Uruguay. It also helps me to connect Paraguay and Uruguay together, so even though they're not touching, I know that they're connected because their names are similar. So Bolivia and Paraguay are connected, and Uruguay is close by. So that is our next chunk of 3. Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay. And that leaves us with 1 country, and I'm assuming most of you are familiar with this country. It's the largest in South America, and it is Brazil. Brazil is its own because it is just that large. And I've kind of chosen a bad color here, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to go with red. Okay. So I have just chunked South America to help me remember the continent easier. Now you're going to go ahead and you're going to complete this with Central America. So the assignment will have the blank map. You'll go through, you can pick any colors you want and any justification for why you've chunked them together. When you submit it, I would love for you to write down why you made them the chunks so that you can kind of remember it in your brain. So for me, I chose this chunk because it's in the north and they're bigger countries. That was my chunk number 1. Then I did the small ones in the very top, chunk number 2. Then I did the lefternmost countries, chunk number 3. And then I did these central countries that are connected to each other. Chunk number 4, Brazil was its own chunk. Let's go through together and do it all at once. We have Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil. So that's an example of how we're going to do chunking to memorize our Latin American continent. And as we move on to the other regions of the world, we will also be applying chunking. Thanks, guys.